This is the second part of the lecture on the urogenital system. Let's use again the mammalian model to study the basic structure of the genital system, also called as the reproductive system. Well, in males, it consists of the testes, the sperm ducts, and some accessory sex glands that contribute to the seminal fluid, also called as the semen. Inside the testes are the highly convoluted seminiferous tubules. The walls of these tubules here contain the spermatocytes, from which the mature sperm cells will develop. From the seminiferous tubules, sperm cells will swim to the efferent ductules, and then from the efferent ductules to the epididymis, where they are temporarily stored until ejaculation. And then upon ejaculation, the sperm will swim through the vas deferens, also called as the ductus deferens, and then on to the urethra, which serves as a common passageway for urine and sperm. Along the way, the prostate, the seminal vesicles, and the bulbourethral glands add their secretions, constituting the seminal fluid. In females, the genital system consists of the ovaries and its oviducts. The ovaries contain the follicles, which are egg cells in various stages of maturation. Usually only one of these follicles mature at a time and is shed into the coelom during ovulation. The oviduct typically has an expanded portion close to the ovaries called the funnel, which captures the ovulated egg using its finger-like structures called the fimbriae. And this fimbriae create a sort of current that moves the egg into the oviduct, and that portion of the oviduct closest to the ovary is called the fallopian tube, also called as the uterine tube. This is where the fertilization must occur before the embryo implants on the uterus, the terminal portion of the oviduct. In some mammals, the two uteri, plural uteri, singular uterus, so the two of them may fuse into a single uterus, just like in humans. And this makes a single birth canal called the vagina. The constricted portion of the uterus here is called the cervix. The genital system develops from a region in the mesomere called the genital ridges. These are just located medial to the previous nephric ridge we discussed that gives rise to the urinary system. So during development, all vertebrates pass through an indifferent or bipotential stage when the fate of the gonads has not yet been decided. And depending on the species, genes, the environment, and sometimes a combination of both factors will determine whether these indifferent gonads will follow the male or the female pathway. But once decided, the gonads will start to differentiate into the testes or ovaries, which will produce the sex hormones that will in turn feed back and determine the fate of the genital ducts and the external genitalia. Some of these ducts, notably the vas deferens of males, which carry the sperm, are actually borrowed from the urinary system. We'll look at it more closely in the next few slides. So the homologous structures in the urogenital system are given a variety of names in anatomy manuals, reflecting their current function, which makes it rather difficult to appreciate their homologies and definitely confuses a lot of students. So, for example, recall that the term archinephric duct is that primitive tube that drains the kidneys of vertebrates. But when it serves a pronephric type of kidney, then it may be called a pronephric duct. But if it serves a mesonephric type of kidney, such as in the adult kidneys of amphibians, then it's called a mesonephric duct. But it's still the archinephric duct. just a different term or name to designate it. In most male vertebrates, the mesonephric or archinephric duct also serves as a sperm duct, in which case it is often referred to as a vas deferens or ductus deferens, another changing name. The term Wolffian duct is also used in this sense. A bit less confusing is the nomenclature for the female genital ducts. The Mullerian duct is that embryonic structure that gives rise to the oviducts. In amniotes, which have metanephric kidneys, the metanephric duct is used to designate it. In mammals, this is synonymous with the ureter. Let's follow the phylogenetic changes in the male urogenital systems. Primitively, vertebrate kidneys and testes share the same duct, which, as shown earlier, may be called mesonephric duct or a vas deferens. It's an economic way of doing things. Just use the same pipe for sperm and wastes. This arrangement is retained in the adult amphibians and also most fishes. But in amniotes, shown here, the mesonephric kidneys regress and are replaced by these metanephric kidneys along with their ureters. But the mesonephric duct here, the blue one, persists as the vas deferens, still serving the testes. As a derived feature, teleost fishes have a separate spermatic duct or testicular duct, which is not derived from the mesonephric duct. The mesonephric duct, the blue one here, only serves the kidneys of teleosts. Let's further compare the primitive system of sharks and the derived condition in teleosts. Fish groups have a mesonephric type of kidney, which is drained by the mesonephric or archinephric duct. The difference is that in sharks, the mesonephric duct mainly serves as a sperm duct and is more properly called a vas deferens. Some urine still flows through this vas deferens, so they're shared, but really urine is primarily drained by these accessory urinary ducts. In teleosts, mesonephric ducts are strictly for urine transport because the sperm is transported, as I said, via their unique testicular or spermatic ducts. Here's another confusing nomenclature. Some manuals use the term opistonephric kidney. An opistonephric kidney can be considered as a subtype of mesonephric kidney that develops from both the middle and the caudal portions of the nephric ridge, instead of just in the middle. So when you read textbooks, you will encounter the opistonephros used synonymously with the mesonephros. So just bear that in mind. In amphibians, as in many sharks and teleosts with opistonephric kidneys, the kidney is actually split into a reproductive and urinary functions. The tubules of the cranial opistonephros, the anterior portion here, has been modified into the epididymis, which carries sperm to the vas deferens, while the tubules of the caudal portion still produce urine. Hence, there's a sexual kidney and there's a uriniferous kidney. Unlike in males, the urinary and genital systems of female vertebrates never share their ducts. Yay! Oviducts develop from the Mullerian ducts, the pink ones here. The mesonephric duct serves the kidneys only and is not called a vas deferens. In female amniotes, here like in the lizard, the mesonephros and mesonephric duct regress and are replaced by the modern metanephric counterparts. Let's compare the primitive features of the shark and the derived features of teleosts once again. The oviduct of the shark also has a funnel portion that catches the ovulated eggs from the ovaries, and a shell gland is present along the way to create the egg sheath. The terminal portion is called the uterus, where in viviparous sharks the embryo is gestated, or if the sharks are oviparous, the eggs are temporarily stored here in the uterus before being laid. Note that the archinephric, mesonephric, or opistonephric duct, all of those are synonyms in this case, is intact to serve the kidneys, not the testes. So they should not be called a vas deferens in this case. In female teleosts, the urinary system is similar to female sharks, but the ovarian duct that carries the egg is a novel structure. It is not derived from the Mullerian duct, which in this case regresses. In female amniotes with a metanephric type of kidney, the urine is carried by the ureters, as we said, and the eggs are still carried by the oviduct like in sharks. These oviducts are derived from the Mullerian ducts. The mesonephric duct, in contrast, regresses. We now come to the cloaca, the common chamber where all digestive, urinary, and genital secretions come together to be released into the environment. Most vertebrates have a cloaca, but in some, the cloaca has been partitioned into two or more openings. In teleosts, the three systems each have separate openings, with the anus leading anteriorly. In eutherian mammals, the feces go out of the anus, but the urogenital stuff still goes together through a common urogenital sinus. In male anatomy, the urogenital sinus is simply called the urethra. In some female mammals, notably primates like female humans, the urogenital sinus divides again to produce a separate urethral opening for the urine and a vaginal opening, which is the birth canal for the reproductive system. So three holes, just like in teleosts. Urinary bladders are temporary storage bags for the urine, so we don't have to pee all the time. Fish bladders, when present, are simply expanded ends of their urinary ducts and are therefore mesodermal in origin. In contrast, tetrapod bladders, when present, are outpocketings of the cloaca and are therefore endodermal in origin. Tetrapods with cloacas still retain this connection between the cloaca and their bladders, like in amphibians and reptiles. So the urine coming from the urinary ducts is first dumped into the cloaca and then goes into the bladder for temporary storage. But in mammals, with a separate passage for poop, the urine directly empties into the urinary bladder and then out to the urethra. Vertebrates that exhibit internal fertilization often have an intromittent organ to safely deposit the sperm into the female reproductive tract. Coitus, or intercourse, is timed during a reproductive season or a fertility window when the egg is still in the upper regions of the oviduct and either hasn't reached the uterus or has not been coated yet with shell. So in male elasmobranchs, typically they have claspers which are made from pterygophores of their pelvic fins, The claspers are used to deposit sperm into the female cloaca and also to clasp the female, as the name implies. Some uh, male teleosts have modified anal fins called a gonopodium, which also serves to deposit sperm. So they're analogous. Mammals, including some reptiles and birds, deploy their penises to deposit sperm. Technically, penises are intromittent organs that remain flaccid at rest but can be engorged with blood or lymph fluid to make it erect during an intercourse. Penises come in various shapes and sizes. Among vertebrates in general, not just humans. Reptile penises, for example, are called hemipenis, which come in pairs. Some birds, like ducks, have a corkscrew-shaped penis that amazingly fits like lock and key in the corkscrew-shaped oviducts of female ducks. Mammalian penises have spongy tissues inside that can be filled with blood during sexual arousal. These are the corpora cavernosa and the single unpaired corpus spongiosum. The urethra passes through the corpus spongiosum and is called the spongy urethra. Some male mammals, like dogs, also have a bone inside their penis to help with erection. This bone is called an os penis or baculum. Humans have lost the baculum for reasons yet unclear.